I'm super excited to get this car on the road, and luckily we've done a lot of preparation with this build and most of it just goes together quickly. This morning I'm doing the ethanol content sensor and also the fuel pressure reg. Now with this car, it is a bit of a show car. It's only going to be like your 400 kilowatt sort of setup, so we're just using -6 line for supply and return of the fuel system. Now I was hoping to run a Nismo fuel pressure reg out of the back of the stock fuel rail. What I've done is Turbo Smart make this nice little fitting that bolts onto the factory fuel rail, and we're going to run the outlet of that down to this Turbo Smart, again FPR6 fuel pressure reg. Now it's nice and easy, mounts good, we've already got the sensor in it, and again, like I said, we've already done all the preparation. So the wiring loom is all done to length and just plugs straight in. What I have done different with this build though is I'm running the ethanol content sensor up the front of the car rather than down the back. So what we're going to do now is probably just put 2 nut insert bolts here and here, and that way the fuel can come out of the fuel pressure reg and straight into the ethanol content sensor, and that can go straight back to the rear of the car into the fuel tank. Rightio, so today is the day that we finally moved the hoist into the new workshop. So we're going to do that right now. It's dyno bolted to the ground. This is a 4.5 ton 2-poster. So yeah, we'll undo it now, grab the forklift and take it over, because it's not long now till GTR Fest. So we haven't had a hoist now for 2 weeks in the new shop, and I really need a hoist to sort out this head drain that we blew in the last vlog. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out, it was heaps of fun. So we've got a couple of weeks to get the engine out, get the head drain sorted, fix some hoses, and then get back into it. Now that we've got the hoist up and we've got the 32 back on it, I just give it a quick check over. It did get a pretty good hiding on the dyno last week, so it all looks really good. There's no issues other than a damn oil leak again, which is that front crank seal. So I've been talking with Darren from Billet Engineering and also Herman from PRP, and we're trying to work out a solution, but we really do need to figure this out. Now, the other oil leak we had was out the rear drain. The downside to those 2 oil leaks, the front crank seal I can get to fairly easily with everything, the engine and everything in place, but the rear head drain, I think we're, famous last words, but I think we're going to drop the engine back out of this, and we'll sort those 2 issues out. So yeah, love the new workshop. Can't wait to do more GTR stuff. Bit of a talking point. I'm going to drop the gearbox and engine out just because it's going to be so much quicker and easier to work on, and I can finally sort out that oil leak. But yeah, a bit of a talking point. This is the back of the gearbox, obviously. This is our transfer case, and this is our high pressure attester line, which we're controlling through the M-Tron. That's the high pressure switch there, which I've disconnected, but a lot of people, well, there's 2 ways to do it, right? You can undo these 2 bolts and drop the transfer case oil out, and then you have to fill it back up when you put it back up in. Or you can undo the rear line and you lose a little bit. I do have a bung, but I can't find it, so I just made jerry rig this one. Yeah, there's two different ways to do it. I like to bleed, just put fresh oil in the attester unit and bleed it. It only takes a couple of minutes, whereas filling that up can be a bit difficult sometimes. But it doesn't matter which way you do it. And I'm going to get rid of this hideous blue cross member. Going to split the dry sump tank in half to pull it out. It's just a bit easier to get it down through our hole. Now I've got the dry sump tank out, you can actually see how this sort of 3D type catch can works. Dash 12 on top, and then it's got like this little header almost, or a top tank, and if you look underneath you can see how it drops down from the top just via a fitting. I think it's like a dash 10 fitting maybe, and that actually connects it to the catch can itself. We all of a sudden we free up over there and we free up over there as well, and I'm just going to leave them empty, keep everything nice and tidy. So that's the injector loom. This one was done by Pete at PT Motorsport, so he did a nice upgraded one for me. All the logos on, all the names on it, where they go, injector 3, etc. Then I got good plugs for the injector dynamics, the 2600s, so they're good as well. And then of course change everything out to DTM plugs. I finished pretty early last night. I didn't get too much done on the 32, but the engine is pretty well ready to come out. I've just got to drop off just the steering bush, I think, just the union that connects the steering rack to the steering wheel, and then it's ready to drop out. I do have some parts that have arrived from Kudos today, so I'm going to undo those before we get stuck into the work. Okay, so I have a Mines Racing baffle flow kit for the cam covers. Oh, just some missing rivets, so the stuff that keeps the guard liners in. Yeah, that's it, nothing exciting. So we're nearly ready to get it out. That's just our last charge pipe that Fab Lab made with M-Tron sensors. The one little thing that really bugs me is the Hypertune manifold. It's probably the most beautiful manifold I've ever seen. EGT's in it, exhaust back pressure sensors in it, two nice Turbo Smart wastegates with screamer pipes. It's just so busy. Having said that, I don't know what is better than this manifold at this level without going to obviously a big Pro mod and an 88 wheel turbo that sits up the front like a massive forward facing one. It's just so busy, and the amount of times I pull my engine in and out, it drives me nuts because I can't get the engine out with the intake manifold on as well as the rear housing, so it hits. So I have to take the rear housing off every time I drop the motor, and it is getting old. I'm sick of it. So but that's the point of this build, right, is we're testing these things, and this is for me personally. All these parts and building on this car is mental health for myself. So I'm always going to be changing it, and I think I may not put this manifold back in. I need to work out whether this is going to be worth it or not.
this turbo manifold, it's down and it's back further, which is why we were having trouble with the turbo nearly hitting on here. So the rear housing's here, whereas it should probably the rear housing be here and the front housing be here, because I do have the room for that. Well, I've got to make sure I do have the room for that, because remember, we've got the dry sump tank set up here. See, this is just what happens. You see, this is V-band. So I'm only going to be able to hold the turbo in place, but it's going to come, it's probably not that different, man. The rear housing's the big one, right? And I've got to make sure it's actually going to, if that's going to have to be changed over to a teal one, or is it Garrett and the teal the same? Don't know. We are moving along quickly this morning, just about to lift the engine up out of the subframe so we can put the subframe back in the car, so we can actually roll it up to get it painted under the engine bay. So it's nice to see the Hollinger sequential here, and I can explain quickly how the Hollinger sequential works. It's its own box from the transmission back is completely the new Hollinger sequential. The bolt holes all line up, so it's just RB bell housing, and all our holes line up because we don't have the brace from using a billet block instead. And then, as you can see, the original OEM transfer case literally just bolts straight up, and you use your factory shifter and you can get away with it because it looks like almost OEM style, which I loved that. I thought that was cool. One piece tail shaft from the drive shaft shop in the US. And then, of course, we got our WAGS performance transfer case, which is just upgraded, I think. I don't think there's too much involved. But, yeah, it looks so good when you see it like this. Vapor blasting. God, it's so good vapor honing, isn't it? Look how good everything looks. All right, let's get on with it. We finally got the engine out, and that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. Thanks to PT Motorsport and Waverley Jewellery for their ongoing support of the channel, and see you next week.